The following program is made by a volunteer producer. The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of MCM Productions.
My name is Fatima Laster. I am 33 years old and I am a visual artist. I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went to college at the Washington University in St. Louis, and I graduated in 2006 from there with a triple majoring in finance, marketing, and entrepreneurship. After that, I started working in Chicago, living and working in Chicago, doing commercial banking, and then from there, I started pursuing my career and passion of being an artist, which is primarily painting, but incorporating other visual art forms as well in that process. In December of 2016, for a week, I took a trip to Cuba with the intent of learning about the Cuban culture, learning about the people, with a specific focus of trying to find and meet artists and also learn about the Afro-Cuban culture. I saw something different than expected. My experience with Cuban people is primarily from visiting Miami, where my sister went to school and lived for 10 plus years, so I would go every year to visit her. And so a shift in behavior and kind of the mentality and how they interacted with each other, being that they were originally from Cuba or stuck or stayed in Cuba, versus having, I guess, more of a American influence. I don't want to sound negative about the Cubans that I've interacted with in Miami, but in Cuba and Havana, they were very much more communal, very open. I actually saw more diversity in the race and the color of people. And I mean, they were just hospitable. It was like night and day from my experience from dealing with Cubans in the US or Miami versus going over there. So it was a pleasant surprise. And the artists that I met were very welcoming, and they offered to get me passports and a cultural visa to come back and do exhibitions with them. They fed me all the time, even when I kind of rejected it, but they just always wanted to share and be a part of and show me what was going on with them, and was interested in learning my experience as well. They didn't dismiss me. Just like here, I don't think government represents the average population. They're very hardworking, they're very communal, they're very friendly, they're very cultured, and they have a lot to offer and to bring. There's no reason for us to not have relations with them, and that ties back again to the government does not represent the people, just like who we have as president might not actually represent our ideals as well. I just think we should keep open relations and positive relations with them, and also respect their culture. They have things to offer us, and we have things to offer them. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to being able to freely visit the relationships and the friendships that I forged in that short time. I'm still in contact with them, so I would like to visit them without any hassle, and I'm looking forward to that day. I think it can be very beneficial for everyone to open up the relationships and just not try to use force and power, especially from the governmental standpoint, to control, and just respect their culture like we respect other people's cultures and have free trade and travel amongst them. Don't hold us, the people, hostage, if we want to forge these relationships. Don't make it a political thing. Let us forge our own relationships. Welcome. And thank you, Art. Art, along with one of my mentors, Evelyn Patricia Terry, helped me coordinate my travel to Cuba in December last year. My intent and purpose for going to Cuba was to learn about their culture, connect with other artists, and just form bonds so that I could go back and then see what their visual art scene was like as well. To start off, this is where I resided. I stayed in the upper level of this flat, but on the bottom, I had immediate access to art because it was a school of photography in Cuba. So my first night there, I went downstairs, they were having a party, and they were having an exhibition, a photography exhibition, and I met quite a few people then. So that was within 15 minutes of my arrival. So this is my room, and then this is where I resided. My host, Alexandra, I was put together with her because she had a lot of, she wasn't an artist herself, but she spoke fluent English, and she has a lot of friends who are professional working artists, and she hosts events for them, and this is some of their work featured in her common area. I'm in contact with them. They've invited me back to Cuba to do exhibitions with them, and they recently had an exhibition. A lot of their art is focused on the body, the human form, and what that means in the global space, so it's challenging identity. And that's Alexandra with her eyes closed, and her 2-year-old daughter, Renata, and her boyfriend, Longa, whose mother is also an artist. He's also an artist, he's a musician. His mother makes dolls, and one of my tasks and assignments while going to Cuba was to find a doll to collect, to bring back to Evelyn, which I did, and you'll see that later in the slides. And then the one smiling in the front, he was a new friend who stayed in this residence as well. He's from Mexico, and his name is Samuel. He was heaven sent because he was a translator for me when my Spanish got broken, and when people wanted to have much more thorough conversations with us. He stayed with me the whole time. As much as I appreciated him, he said he appreciated me for giving him an experience he never would have had because it wasn't as touristy as a normal trip would be. We really went into the city to get to meet people, and we really formed bonds with a lot of the Cubans in Havana. The lady to the left is Orosi Coro. She also helped protect me and make my arrangements with Alexandra while in Havana. That is her family. They fed me very well, and she served a traditional Cuban holiday cuisine for me, because as I was there over Christmas. That's her husband. To her immediate right, that's their son. And then she also is an English teacher. So she tutors a lot of children who's in the black shirt English so that they can eventually travel and maybe get to the US. Again, on my first night, I left, this is around 10 or 11 p.m. They have a huge facility called La Fabrica, where it's just a warehouse of art. It's an art gallery of contemporary art, some traditional art. They were having another exhibit where they were also had concerts going on. They had film screenings going on, and had about 11 different rooms of art for people to mingle and interact and drink and just be amongst the art in a more of a relaxed social environment. And so these next few slides are just some of the art that captured my eye. One of the common threads between some of the art is a focus on people. I was amazed to find such a tie to American culture. These next few slides, you'll see some black and whites from Jerry Stahl, who's a photographer, and his focus was on black jazz musicians, as he felt that they were the single most influential figures on American art, culture, literature, and the sort within the 50s to 1995. This is the island of Cuba, made by an artist. This is made of all keys that were found, and it's called like the key to life. Another common thread that I found in a lot of the art that you'll see throughout is a a strong influence on found objects, incorporating found objects into the artwork. This one I liked, this resonated with me. This is Dexter Gordon. He's one of my father's favorite jazz musicians. And when I saw it, I just paused and I had to take a picture because my dad commissioned me to make him a Dexter Gordon painting, and it's right after this, I believe. So again, these images are still from La Fabrica, and I was really astounded to see how much they appreciated and honored and the visual representation of Black American artists and art forms there. Because it's not as accessible and available here, and because of the ties between the U.S. and Cuba. This is the start of some more photography that focused on las pobres, the poor Cubans. The statement reads, "The humility of the poor beats that of the apparent guilt of the corrupt." Another thing that was surprising for me to see was how dark Cubans are. My immediate image of them are more fair-skinned Cubans that I've interacted with in Miami. My sister lived in Miami for over 10 years as she attended the University of Miami. And so I would go every year, and the interaction with the Cubans there was quite different than the Cubans that I met in Havana. But also the diversity in their skin tones was astounding to me. And they actually thought I was Cuban, which was beneficial because I blended in, and I felt like that gave me a more natural access and their willingness to tell me stories about their country and their culture and their lives. Another reason I also went over there was to learn about the Afro-Cuban culture. Prior to the start of this presentation, the music that was playing, I purchased from a gentleman off the street who was Afro-Cuban, and he said this is authentic Orisha music by a popular musician named Lázaro Rose. I do some photography, but these are just documentation of the art that resonated with me and what I saw in Cuba. Okay. But I'm primarily a painter. This is not mine. You'll see me towards the end. I did do a painting while I was there with one of the artists. He wanted to do an exchange. So he made me a sculpture, which you'll see on that piano. And you'll also see later in the PowerPoint. There's a lot of representation of Afro-Cubans and dark-skinned people that is usually not present in the U.S., especially in a fine art space, which this is considered. So these pieces really resonated with me because of the representation. There were also a lot of focus on the body and through nudes and through what the more mainstream media doesn't cover, the true female form or the true male form. I've also found them to be a little bit more liberal there about sexuality and identity and what have you. And talking with them, they felt that everyone was one. There was no classism there besides the government. It's either you're in the government and you're of the more higher class, or you're of the general population. You're all one. This is me at a Rumba house. It was Patio Rumba. It was actually closed when I got there, but they let us walk through, and I got a small mini samba tutorial by this gentleman. The gentleman to my right is who I purchased the Afro-Cuban music from. And they are the ones who told me about Afro-Cuban festival that I attended maybe 3 days later. You'll see that later in the slideshow. But it's a whole section that's like with found art and mosaics and Afro-Cuban influence artwork. This is a gallery that my first full day there, I just popped into. So I just went to Old Havana, and any art gallery space or any place that I heard music I walked into. They're very open. and welcoming, but you can just walk into a space and it'll be fine. And this is how I found this art gallery. So this piece right here, I kicked myself because I didn't buy it. I wanted to ration my money as it was my first day there. I love this sculpture. When I asked the gallery owner who she is or what she represents, and she's just a regular Cuban woman from Havana. And so I didn't get it. Hopefully it's there when I go back. The cost of art is, that piece would have been equivalent to maybe like $5 or $10, but I didn't have that much money. I didn't know how much art was there, so this was my first official, where I could purchase the art. The other art from La Fabrica wasn't really for sale. And so I thought, okay, I'll go back once I see and do a budget, but I didn't make it back to get it. This is an artist, his name is Leo Guillermo Martinez, and I am still in contact with him. He is a stone sculptor there, and he travels back and forth to the US often. Soon after I left Cuba, he had an exhibition in California. He made the white sculpture. He's a sculptor. He made that white sculpture out of some natural stone. He also carves out of natural woods. He focuses on the female form. He'll have a lot of pieces with the form missing, like the stomach or holes in it, and I asked him what that represented. He said he always has loved women and no one appreciates them, and so it identifies how we take from them. And so he does a lot of sculptures that way. He is very connected in Cuba, and he has also extended me to come back and get me a cultural visa to come live and practice there when I'm ready. Another thing I appreciated while over there that you might see in other cities but not in Milwaukee as much is the public art. It's it's high quality. There are a lot of sculptures and even the, I don't want to call it graffiti, but the street art is very well done and it's thought out, and you'll read a lot of stories. They'll usually have a lot of diction about them. Even the sculptures, they have a lot of sculptures representing a lot of the revolutionaries that they felt contribute to their survival. I took a picture of this bookstore. I like collecting books too, and art books, but everywhere you see is trying to use words, propaganda for Fidel. So everywhere I'm like, yo soy Fidel, and I love Fidel, and we are Fidel. So that was everywhere in this bookstore, and a lot of books about Fidel. This is Frank. He was a random person we met when we went to Callejón de Jamel, which is where the Afro-Cuban festival took place. You can keep going. This is where the festival took place. So this whole area is designated to that space of art and around the culture and music. And there was a performance done to represent some of their historical. There's a lot of scriptures about spirituality and morals. And again, this area alone shows how much they use and reuse materials, as they have very, very little access to materials, especially fine art materials. I'm trying to actually get some art supplies over to one of the artists that I met over there, because the cost of paint is exorbitant for them and for paint brushes, so I actually have some supplies in my truck if anyone's going to Cuba soon to get supplies over there. But I know that's a strong reason that they do a lot of outsider art or found art projects. So this area, when you ask how much art was, I found art in like the hundreds of dollars here. So there's a very established artist here. He has a studio here, and he brings in a lot of people. His art is selling for like $400 and more. I couldn't afford him, definitely. So this area, it just shows you how much everything is touched by the art over there. There are a lot of religious signs with the orishas within the art and symbols. This is the start of the Afro-Cuban dance performance, and the women were actually the musicians and kind of leading the show. Again, I was really amazed at how much they look like me, because again, what I know to be Cuban is a fair-skinned person in Miami. And so I was just like, oh, I've seen her before in the U.S. It was really hot this day. I was appreciative of their performance because they went all out, and they're actually on concrete dancing barefoot. This is an off-key. I play tennis as well, and so I went to the beach one day and I saw children playing tennis, so they let me join them for a second. So this is getting, like I mentioned, the gentleman named Longa, who stayed in the residence with us. His mother is an artist and she makes dolls for a living. This is one of the dolls in her kitchen. And this is another doll she made. And when we visited her, it was actually on her birthday. And so I bought 2 or 3 dolls for her. The doll sitting on the piano is one that I purchased for Evelyn and brought back. Everyone comments on how scary the doll looks, and a lot of the dolls had a similar facial aesthetic, and it turns out the doll is really a representation of Fidel. I met other artists within Leo's space, his art gallery. I met a doctor who was also a poet. I met a theater owner and playwright person. I also met a choreographer, and the doctor really got attached to me, and he brought his poems over for me to read to tell him if they were any good. But a lot of the symbolism and coded words in his stories were about how Fidel was oppressive. And so the connection between the doll maker and him was how they kind of hid their resentment towards him within their work. This is the gang. So the guy to the far right, he's the playwright. The doctor hadn't showed up again yet with his poems, and that's Leo, who was with his shirt off. But that was our modern day version of this picture. This is also in this gallery, which is some of his mentors and some of the pioneering artists from Cuba. This is one day before I left. That's the start of that sculpture. And that's his process. He goes at it with a pickaxe and a different kind of axe, a machete, and then he also grinds it down and drills into it to make the holes and to smooth it out. And that's some more of his work. And if you see the holes, that's what I'm talking about, that's missing from the womb. And that's me painting. He broke off an old, found art. He broke off an old cabinet door, and he carved the stripes and the triangle for the Cuban flag that he wanted me to paint. I thought he wanted me to leave with him, but he made me take it. I also, within the paint, I incorporated the dust and the debris from the sculpture to give the piece a little bit more body, so I mixed that in with the paint. So it's like some land from Cuba within the painting as well. This piece I did bring back and I gave to one of my peers or my friends here because his dad is Cuban, his mother is African American, his dad is Cuban. And I didn't get a chance to meet his family over there, but I brought him something from his home. It was funny because the space is open for people to walk in, which is how I found it also, just popping in. I saw art and I walked in. But people were taking pictures of me because they thought I was a Cuban artist. After I finished painting, this is a different area. This is Guanabacao. This is the museum for Afro-Cuban culture. Leo took me. I would have gotten lost trying to find it. It was a ways away, but he took me, and we were able to sneak in a few pictures because they're not allowed in the museum. But these are some of the displays set up for the different gods of war, of love, of fertility, and like harvest. So these are a few of the displays. This is my last day. I ran to this gallery. This is another fine art gallery. You can keep going. And the works here that I love are by Angel Ricardo Rios. He's Cuban, but he's residing in Mexico. And he does abstract art. This is my Normalize with Rosie. She was a protector. I had an incident my first night there, or my second night there, where they had mistaken me for I don't know what, but she always made me check in with her every night. You know, she said, "I know you're an adult, but check in with me every night, no matter what time." So she was a good resource for me. That again is Samuel, who's my buddy and my translator. He stayed about a week longer after I left, but kept writing. That's Longa, who actually took us on a tour of some of the sites, so there was some more touristy tour around Havana with some of the museums. That's us at a lounge. That's us in the back of one of the traditional, or the old cars. That's us in the art gallery, having libation. That's it. While I was in randomly in Leo's art gallery, some women came in. 3 women came in. 2 of them were from America. I thought all 3 of them they were African American, but one was Cuban, and she is a young performing artist, and now she's graduating to painting, which she's one of the people I'm sending supplies to. I'm trying to send supplies to, and I let her know about an incident that I had where the police tried to detain me, and I wasn't aware why, and she kind of revealed that some of the racism that they dealt with, which was different from what I experienced as racism here, because I know ours is tied to economics, whereas their economics is not a factor in the racism, it's based on colorism. So she shared a documentary with me that she made, and it was broadcast on Fuse TV that I'm going to play for you now. And a show, a generational divide about attitudes towards Fidel and some of the day in the life issues that she deals with as a black skinned Cuban woman.
Todas esas cosas que yo quiero y todas esas ambiciones que yo tengo, yo sé que estando aquí no van a ir.
Soy negra, descendiente de haitiano. Sé que en realidad Fidel nos dio el lugar que nunca nadie nos había dado. Yo pienso que con este golpe mucha gente van a reaccionar y van a saber que esta revolución no se puede perder. Tanto los negros, que tanto le debemos esta revolución, como los guajiros y la parte pobre, que sabemos que en realidad hemos recibido gran beneficio de esta revolución, aunque muchos no lo quieran reconocer.
Desde niño estamos viendo lo que es el legado de Fidel, la lucha de él por la igualdad, la lucha de él por la salud, la lucha de él por la educación, la lucha porque todos, independientemente de la creencia, el color, tengamos los mismos derechos. Si yo viviera en un país donde yo, o sea, puedo vivir de lo que hago, puedo vivir como artista, puedo vivir haciendo mi música, puedo vivir haciendo mi cine,
Por supuesto que los demás países para mí serían como ir de vacaciones.
Yo sueño con Lacey y me gustaría que nunca perdiera sus valores. Eso es lo que yo quisiera. Que viajara, a los viajes esos que ella da, sí me gusta, pero que se quedara afuera no me gustaría.
Por ser negro y tener ciertas y determinadas características, sí te paran por gusto, sí te piden carnet por gusto, sí te acusan por gusto de que, no sé, a lo mejor de que eres no sé cómo se dice, que te estás prostituyendo. Y yo sí siento que sí sea o sea, que ahí sí haya un problema racial. Te das cuenta que con las personas blancas no pasa, y si pasa, no es tan grande.
Amigos de ella, que se han ido, gente muy preparada, gente muy talentosa. Hay quien sí ha llegado a la cima, pero hay quien se ha quedado en el suelo. Y es duro estudiar mucho y salir de aquí a tener que fregar platos.
Sé que es una necesidad, pero no me gusta. Pero bueno, eso está en ella.
Pues también es la única manera que yo sé que voy a tener de ayudarlas a ellas, ¿no?
But Lacey and her grandmother and her mother, the issue is her mother and her grandmother had a perspective of Cuba before the revolution, and they didn't think things were as bad as she did. So there was a generational divide on the perspective of what the quality of life should be for them. Because they survived more extreme poverty than what's existing now. But Lacey would like to leave. She would like to come to the U.S., but she's also torn between leaving her family. Her family clearly doesn't want her to leave. And then she also talked about the racism that persists in Cuba. She said they'll stop you and ask you for your ID, and that is the experience that I had while I was there. My second night there, I was walking with Samuel. We were going to the lounge, and two gentlemen in regular citizen, everyday clothes were on a motorcycle and stopped ahead of us at the end of the corner. And then as we were passing them, one grabbed me and he asked me for my identification. Didn't tell me why. I don't know why. I figured piece things together after telling this story, but I did experience that myself. While it was an upsetting incident, my experience in Cuba with all the other people that I met was very positive, so I wouldn't tell people not to go. But it is good to be aware of some of the issues that persist there so that you can travel safely. Otherwise, you could be detained. So that is it. Thank you.
This program was made by a volunteer producer through MCM, a nonprofit organization.